Hello, and welcome to How to Adapt a Toy. This is the introduction on adapting toys and part 1 of this module. My name is Kate Moseley, and I'm an assistive technology specialist. I am a Tasc employee that contracts with STAR to provide AT webinars and trainings. You can view these trainings at www.startraining.org. This PowerPoint will be available upon request. Please email me at task@ucphuntsville.org to request this PowerPoint or if you have any questions regarding this module. So just a little bit about Tasc and STAR. Tasc stands for Technology Assistance for Special Consumers. We service all of Alabama and do AT consultations, informal sessions, and technical assistance. STAR is Alabama's assistive technology resource. Together, Tasc and STAR collaborate to bring you al.atforall.com. This website is a lending library where you can check out any of our equipment for 2 to 3 weeks. This equipment includes switches, mounts, adaptive toys, communication aids, aids to daily living, computer access tools, and more. So this is an overview of our module. This is video 1. We're going to talk about why you should adapt toys, the tools you will need to adapt toys, what we will be doing to adapt a toy, and talk about what this module will encompass overall. The other videos in this module include how to solder, how to make a port for your switch, and actually adapting the toy. So to start, why do we adapt toys? Why do we adapt? Not everyone can push the pre-made button in toys. You'll notice that a lot of toys nowadays have a paw and a teddy bear or a button that you can press to make the toy move, dance, or sing. Larger switches give people more access to these toys, so maybe they could use their elbow to hit the switch, or their foot, or their head. This also leaves room for special switches. If you use a sip and puff switch, or if you use a flick switch or a twitch switch, you have the opportunity to use those switches as opposed to the pre-made one that might be too small or not accessible for everyone. These toys are great for therapy tests and strengthening, to see what kind of movement someone has or their ability to perform a certain task. Toys are great because they give an immediate response back. They light up or dance or sing. This also gives someone the opportunity to experience play. Play is very important in a child's development because it lets them experience their world. By giving them an adaptive toy, they're able to experience their world through the toy. This is also an early introduction to devices. It's going to teach children or youth or even adults skills that they may need later on in life. For example, environmental controls can be controlled through switches. So to practice and work up to using environmental controls, we might give a child an adaptive toy so that they see when they press the button, they get a reaction. This will be similar to when they press a button in the future and they're able to have an environmental control turn on or off. I thought this was a really wonderful quote. The earlier a child starts using low-tech assistive tech devices, the more natural the progression to high-tech devices and the greater success later on. Now let's review your toolbox. These are the tools that you will need for soldering. You are going to need a soldering iron, like the one seen here with the yellow handle. You will need flux, which is here in these little tins. It's a gel-like substance. You're going to need solder, which there's 2 packaging forms it comes in. It comes in spools such as this one, or in these tight little packets like this one here. I prefer the ones with the yellow cap and the tight little packets because they're easy to manage and it does not unravel. You will also need soldering iron stands. Here are 2 examples of soldering iron stands. This one you'll see at a lot of places. The soldering iron goes in the black cap and is held by the spring. It even has a little sponge where you can clean the tip of your soldering iron. I much prefer this model here. You can see that it also has a stand, but it has 2 little clamps, so that you can hold the wires that you may be soldering or hold other items that might need to be held up. You will also need these additional tools. You will need wire strippers like the ones seen here to expose the metal part of the wire from its plastic covering. You will also need double-stranded wire. Here are two examples of double-stranded wire. You'll notice that there are multiple metal wires within each plastic covering, but we're looking for a wire that has two separate plastic coverings. You will also need a 3.5 millimeter female stereo jack like the one seen here. These can be kind of difficult to find by themselves. I found some at digikey.com. That's digikey.com. And you can actually buy them in bulk if you plan on adapting many toys. You will need wire cutters, like the ones in the bottom left. You may want to get some sewing materials. We actually have to open part of the toy to get access to some of the switch wires, and you may want to sew that back up so that none of the wires fall out afterwards. You will also need scissors and paper towels to kind of keep everything clean. Now, you don't have to make your own port. Video 3 is going to be about making your own port for the switch, and if you would rather skip that step, you can actually buy your own port. Now, if you adapt toys in bulk, or if you plan on doing this a lot, it is going to be more expensive for you to do it this way. But if this is a one-time adaptation, or maybe you're only going to do it once or twice, then this might be an easier way to go about doing things. So you would buy a cord similar to the one shown at the right, and you'll see that we have the female end right here, and this is the part that we're going to need to put into the toy. So what we can do is actually just cut this wire in half and use the female port on this wire. Now there's a few things you'll need to know. You want to make sure that it has double-stranded wire inside of it, so we need to make sure that we can have both output and input into the device. And you want to make sure that the head, the female port, fits the switch that you're trying to use. If you do choose this option, you are not going to need double-stranded wire or the female stereo jack that I had mentioned earlier in our toolbox, and as I said, you can skip part 3. So what exactly are we doing when we adapt a toy? How does adapting a toy work, and what steps am I going to need to know? Well, here I've drawn a little diagram that explains what exactly we're doing when we adapt a toy. So in the first picture, this toy has a circuit. So you can see there's a battery, and the battery hooks up to a switch in the toy's foot. When a child pushes the toy's foot, it might sing or dance or light up, as we had talked about earlier. Now when you push that button, it loops back to the battery and performs that function. So by redirecting the circuit to a switch, we're going to remove the wires that normally hook up to the play button or the press here button in the toy, cut those wires, and insert our own female head switch. This will allow us to hook up most of our basic standard switches that you can buy at different stores. So now, when I push the play button on the bear's foot, it's not going to sing or dance. But if I press the switch that I've hooked up, it will perform those actions. So the steps for this that we'll go over in more detail depending on which videos you watch. We're going to prepare our station, so make sure you're in an area where you can have access to electricity to heat up your soldering iron, and have access to a clear space and nothing's going to get burnt or have solder dripped on it. We need to create the female port, or as we had just discussed, you can have one ready and bought. Choose the switch. So within the toy, some toys have multiples. For example, there may be a bear where if you push one foot it lights up, but if you push the other foot it's going to sing and dance. So you want to choose which switch you want to work with first. You can have multiple switches attached to multiple toys. It can be a bit overwhelming if you have 5 or 6 different switches that you're trying to hook up. Most of the people I've worked with and most of the clients I've worked with have only wanted access to one switch. So maybe the sing and dance option, or if the child doesn't hear very well, then the light up option. So you can do both, but I would work with one at a time. So choose which switch you'd like to work with. Then we're going to open up the toy, cut the wires that the toy is connected to, and solder our female port, so either the one you made or have ready, to the toy. Then we're going to tape over that soldering and sew the toy back up. Now, it's always important to make sure you test it. If it doesn't work, there's a few things you can go through to try to figure out why it might not be working. But it's always good to test before you give it to the client to make sure it works. So if you have any questions about this introduction, please email me at tasc@ucphuntsville.org, or if you have any questions about the following videos or any part of this module, please email me.